An unbreakable bond begins. The Wilson family lived a modest life in a small town in Ohio, where the days felt unhurried, and each season arrived with comforting familiarity. Jack Wilson, a high school physics teacher, and his wife, Laura, a part-time nurse, had always dreamed of a simple, fulfilling life, but everything changed 2 years prior in a tragic accident that left their 10-year-old son, Alex, paralyzed from the waist down. Alex, once full of boundless energy, found himself confined to a wheelchair, his young world turned upside down in a single day. Despite the physical and emotional battles, Alex's spirit remained resilient. Each week, he looked forward to visits to the local animal shelter, a tradition that had started as a way to lift his spirits and give him a sense of purpose. His parents found solace in seeing him happy around the animals, and Alex, though he couldn't run and play as he used to, loved every minute he spent with the dogs, filling his weekends with laughter and affection. For him, the shelter was a place of comfort and hope, a rare corner of his life where he felt truly at ease. One crisp Saturday morning, Alex and his parents made their usual trip to the shelter. The chill in the air hinted that autumn was just around the corner, painting the world in hues of amber and crimson. As they made their way through the kennels, admiring the assortment of dogs eagerly wagging their tails, a commotion at the far end of the shelter caught their attention. Alex was the first to notice and leaned forward, eyes wide with curiosity. At the end of the row was a new arrival, a scruffy dog with coarse fur, an unusual mix of breeds that gave him a rugged, endearing look. However, something else made him stand out. The dog, who the shelter staff called Charlie, had only 3 legs. His missing limb was a stark reminder of his rough past. Charlie cowered in the corner, seemingly trying to make himself invisible as he ignored the shelter volunteers' gentle attempts to coax him out. Jack, Laura, and Alex watched as Charlie refused to budge, a nervous whine escaping his lips each time someone drew near. But despite his evident fear, there was something deeply compelling about the little dog. Alex felt a strange connection to him, as though he understood the dog's pain. He urged his father to push his wheelchair closer. "Do you think I can see him, Mom?" Alex asked, his voice a mix of excitement and concern. Laura exchanged a worried glance with Jack. The volunteer, a kind woman named Marcy, overheard them and walked over with a cautious expression. "Charlie's had a difficult time," Marcy explained gently. "He was found on the streets just a week ago. Poor thing lost his leg in an accident, and he's been afraid of everyone ever since." She looked over at Alex. "I'm not sure it's a good idea, sweetie. He's not used to sudden movements, and we don't want him to get scared." But Alex was determined. I feel like he needs someone to understand him. Please." His voice held a quiet insistence, and his eyes shone with a fierce empathy. Jack placed a hand on Laura's shoulder. "Let's give it a try. We'll stay close, and if it doesn't go well, we can step back." Marcy hesitated, then nodded and carefully unlocked the kennel door, keeping a close watch as Alex rolled forward. At first, Charlie did nothing. He remained curled up, staring blankly at the wall. Alex extended a hand, not too close but close enough for Charlie to notice. For a few moments, nothing happened. Jack and Laura exchanged worried glances, preparing for the worst. But then, Charlie's ears twitched. Slowly, he turned his head, and his weary eyes locked onto Alex. The room fell silent as everyone held their breath. In that moment, it was as if the two were speaking a silent language only they could understand. With a hesitant whimper, Charlie limped forward, and to everyone's surprise, nuzzled his head gently onto Alex's lap. Alex's face lit up in a way that his parents hadn't seen since before the accident. He reached down, running his fingers through Charlie's matted fur, his touch light yet full of warmth. Without any hesitation, he wrapped his arms around the scruffy dog, holding him close as Charlie trembled in his embrace. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried a profound weight, a hug between two beings who had each suffered loss and loneliness. Tears pricked Laura's eyes as she watched her son. It had been so long since he had shown such raw happiness. Jack cleared his throat, feeling a lump of emotion rising, but he simply squeezed his wife's hand, sharing in her silent awe. "Can we take him home?" Alex asked, looking up at his parents with pleading eyes. "He needs us, and I think I need him too." Jack hesitated. They had discussed adopting a dog many times before, but were unsure if they could manage the responsibility with everything going on in their lives. But as he looked at his son, who had faced so many hardships with unwavering bravery, Jack knew that this was more than just a passing request. Alex needed something that not even his parents' love and support could provide, a friend who understood his pain. Marcy cleared her throat, interrupting Jack's thoughts. "Charlie's had a rough time, and it'll be challenging. But," she smiled warmly, "I think he's found his person. I can get the paperwork started if you're ready." Jack nodded, finally giving in to his son's hopeful gaze. "Yes, I think it's time we bring Charlie home." The drive back was filled with excitement and a touch of nervous anticipation. Charlie sat close to Alex's side, his head resting on the boy's lap, as though he had known him all his life. The Wilson family had no idea that this new member would change their lives in ways they could never have imagined. Over the next few weeks, Charlie gradually adjusted to his new home. At first he was wary, often hiding under the couch or retreating to his corner whenever anyone but Alex tried to approach. But his bond with Alex grew stronger each day. They spent hours together, sharing quiet moments where words weren't needed. Every night, Charlie slept at the foot of Alex's bed, his soft snores filling the room like a lullaby. It was during one of these quiet nights that something unusual happened. Alex woke up, feeling a strange tingling in his legs. He shifted, and the sensation seemed to intensify. Slowly, he reached out and nudged Charlie, who lifted his head and looked at him with an alert, almost knowing gaze. "Charlie," Alex whispered, his heart racing. "I felt something in my legs." Charlie tilted his head, his brown eyes filled with an understanding that went beyond words. He nuzzled Alex's leg, as if encouraging him. For the first time in 2 years, Alex felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. In the morning, he told his parents, who listened with a mixture of surprise and cautious optimism. They reminded themselves that his doctors had always said any movement was unlikely, if not impossible. But there was something different in Alex's eyes, a spark that had been missing for so long. Jack and Laura exchanged a glance, realizing that this was more than just a story of a boy and his dog. Over the next few days, Alex started feeling those strange sensations more frequently, always when he was with Charlie. His parents watched closely, unsure of what to make of it, but sensing that something extraordinary was beginning to unfold. The bond between Alex and Charlie was about to take them all on an incredible journey, a journey of healing, love, and miraculous discoveries. It was only the beginning, but as Jack and Laura looked on, they knew their lives were about to change in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The awakening of hope. The days passed with a quiet, hopeful rhythm in the Wilson household. Each day, Alex and Charlie grew closer, the bond between them deepening in ways that words could hardly capture. Charlie remained fiercely loyal, always by Alex's side, his gentle presence a constant source of comfort. And as the boy and his three-legged friend spent more time together, something truly remarkable began to happen. It was a chilly October morning, and the Wilsons were up early, bustling around the kitchen in anticipation of a busy day. Alex had a physical therapy session that afternoon, a routine his parents had resigned themselves to even though it hadn't yielded significant results in the past 2 years. His doctors were supportive, though cautiously realistic, urging the family to focus on maintaining what strength Alex had rather than holding out hope for recovery. But Alex wasn't listening to their tempered expectations. His focus was on something far more personal. Ever since he brought Charlie home, he'd begun to feel sensations in his legs, small flickers of awareness he hadn't felt since the accident. At first he was hesitant to believe it, wondering if his mind was simply playing tricks on him. But each time it happened, the feeling grew stronger, more vivid. That morning, he woke with an inexplicable warmth in his legs, like a gentle pulse that spread upward. He sat up in bed, holding his breath as he touched his legs, half expecting the feeling to vanish. But it didn't. The warmth lingered even as he scooted to the edge of his bed and let his feet dangle toward the floor. Charlie noticed immediately, and without hesitation. The dog limped over, his eyes full of an unspoken understanding. Alex reached down and let his hand rest on the scruffy fur atop Charlie's head. "Do you think I'm really feeling something, Charlie?" he whispered, as if afraid to say it too loudly, lest the feeling disappear. Charlie nudged his knee with a soft whine, his gaze intense and steady. It was almost as though he were saying, "Yes, you're not imagining it. Believe in yourself." Feeling bolstered by Charlie's quiet encouragement, Alex dressed and wheeled himself into the kitchen, his mind swirling with questions he didn't dare voice. His parents were busy preparing breakfast when he joined them, his mother setting a plate of scrambled eggs on the table while his father poured coffee, the comforting clink of mugs and silverware filling the room. But they both turned when Alex wheeled in, noticing the brightness in his eyes. "Good morning, sweetie," his mom greeted him, smiling warmly. "You're up early." Alex smiled back, a hint of excitement in his gaze. I think I felt something this morning," he blurted out, his voice filled with a mix of wonder and disbelief. "In my legs." A moment of stunned silence followed. Jack and Laura exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of surprise and hope. It wasn't the first time Alex had mentioned feeling something since Charlie came home with them, but each time they had brushed it off as a momentary reflex or perhaps a trick of the mind. Yet today, Alex's conviction felt different, stronger, more certain. "Alex," Laura began, her voice gentle but cautious. "Are you sure? Sometimes it's easy to mistake sensations, especially if it's been a while since you." "I'm sure, Mom," Alex interrupted, his eyes unwavering. "It's different now. It feels real." Jack stepped closer, placing a hand on Alex's shoulder. "That's amazing, buddy. Whether it's a fluke or something else, the fact that you're feeling anything at all is a good sign. Let's just take it one step at a time." "Yeah," Alex nodded, his excitement only slightly dampened. He knew his parents were worried about getting his hopes up, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was happening. And though he wasn't sure how or why, he knew Charlie had something to do with it. Later that day, as they made their way to the physical therapy clinic, Alex found himself feeling both nervous and excited. It was as if he was stepping into unknown territory, and his heart raced with anticipation. Charlie was with him, as usual, his presence a steady source of comfort as they pulled into the parking lot. Alex wheeled himself toward the entrance, his parents following close behind, while Charlie trotted faithfully by his side. Inside, the therapy room was bright and spacious, filled with exercise equipment and a large set of parallel bars for patients to practice walking exercises. Alex's therapist, Dr. Madison, greeted them warmly, her expression softening as she took in the sight of Charlie, who had quickly become a familiar face during Alex's sessions. "Hello, Alex," Dr. Madison greeted him, her eyes twinkling. "And hello to you too, Charlie. You ready for today's exercises?" Alex nodded, gripping the arms of his wheelchair as he took a deep breath. He had told Dr. Madison about the sensations in his legs, and while she had initially been cautious about raising his hopes, she had promised to keep a close eye on any changes. As Alex began his exercises, Charlie lay beside him, his eyes focused intently on his friend, as though sensing the importance of the moment. Dr. Madison guided Alex through a series of movements, encouraging him as he worked to lift his legs with small, careful motions. It was a routine he had done countless times, but today something was different. Today, the warmth he'd felt that morning had returned, a subtle but unmistakable sensation that spurred him forward. "Alex, try pushing down with your right foot," Dr. Madison instructed gently, her tone encouraging. Alex took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on his foot as he focused all his energy on making it move. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, to everyone's astonishment, his foot shifted ever so slightly. The movement was faint, barely a twitch, but it was there. A glimmer of strength returning to a limb he had thought would never move again. A stunned silence filled the room as Dr. Madison's eyes widened in disbelief. That's incredible, Alex," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. "You just moved your foot." Jack and Laura gasped, their eyes welling up with tears as they watched their son. Alex's heart pounded as he glanced down at Charlie, who was gazing up at him with a look of pride and encouragement. I did it," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. "I really did it." The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for the Wilsons. Alex's small triumph at the therapy session had given him and his family a newfound sense of hope. Each morning, he woke with renewed determination, eager to push himself further in his exercises. And every time he felt his body respond, he looked down to see Charlie by his side, watching him with an intensity that was almost human. It didn't take long for Alex's progress to catch the attention of the medical staff at the clinic. Dr. Madison, baffled by the unexplainable improvement, decided to consult with a neurologist who specialized in spinal injuries. After a series of tests and evaluations, the doctors were left scratching their heads. They could find no logical explanation for Alex's sudden progress, yet the results were undeniable. His nerve responses, which had been dormant since the accident, were gradually returning. As the days turned into weeks, Alex's movements became stronger and more controlled. By the end of the month, he was able to lift both feet off the ground, a feat that would have been considered impossible just a few short weeks ago. His doctors were at a loss, calling it a miraculous recovery, without any clear explanation. Throughout it all, Charlie remained a constant source of support, but there was something about the dog's behavior that was hard to ignore. An awareness that went beyond what anyone expected. It was as though he could sense each small victory, his eyes shining with pride every time Alex made progress. Then, one evening, something happened that changed everything. It was a quiet night, and Alex was sitting in his room, reflecting on the events of the past month. Charlie lay beside him, his head resting on Alex's lap as he stared up at him with those deep, soulful eyes, feeling an overwhelming gratitude. Alex reached down and wrapped his arms around Charlie, burying his face in the dog's fur. "Thank you, Charlie," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I don't know how, but I know you're helping me. I feel it every time you're near." Suddenly, a warmth spread through Alex's chest, filling him with an indescribable sense of peace. He held his breath, feeling as though he was on the brink of some profound revelation. And then, to his utter disbelief, he heard a voice, a quiet, gentle voice, resonating in his mind like a whisper. "You are strong, Alex. I am here with you, always." Alex's eyes flew open as he pulled back, his heart racing. He stared at Charlie, who gazed back at him with a calm, knowing expression. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Had he imagined it? Was it possible that Charlie had just spoken to him? "Charlie," he whispered, his voice trembling. Charlie tilted his head, his gaze steady and unwavering. And in that moment, Alex knew. Somehow, impossibly, Charlie had communicated with him, not in words, exactly, but in a way that was just as clear. The weight of the moment settled over him, filling him with an indescribable sense of awe. His mind raced with questions, but deep down, he knew the answers didn't matter. What mattered was that Charlie was here, guiding him, helping him heal in ways no one could explain. From that night forward, Alex no longer felt alone. Charlie was more than just a companion. He was a friend, a protector, a silent force guiding him toward a future he had once thought impossible. And as he drifted to sleep, he couldn't help but wonder what new miracles awaited them in the days to come. Whispers of miracles. The realization that Charlie could communicate, even if only in fleeting, wordless thoughts, transformed Alex's world. He had always felt a special bond with his three-legged companion, but now that connection felt almost otherworldly. There was a mysterious depth to their friendship, one that went beyond words or actions. It was as though they shared an unspoken language that only they could understand, a bridge of empathy that linked their spirits. The following morning, Alex woke with a renewed sense of hope. He glanced down at his legs, flexing his toes experimentally, and to his delight, he could still feel the faint, tingling warmth coursing through them. Charlie, who had slept faithfully by his side, lifted his head as if sensing Alex's excitement. The dog's eyes sparkled with an intelligent, almost knowing gaze that sent a thrill through Alex's chest. He had never experienced a connection like this before, and he knew instinctively that whatever was happening was extraordinary. As the Wilson family gathered around the breakfast table, Alex couldn't keep his newfound hope to himself. Between bites of his cereal, he looked up at his parents, his face alight with excitement. "Mom, Dad," he began, his voice brimming with conviction. "I felt it again this morning. I moved my toes, on my own. And I think—" He hesitated, not quite sure how to put it into words. "I think Charlie has something to do with it." Jack and Laura exchanged a glance, their expressions a mixture of surprise and cautious optimism. They had seen the improvements for themselves, but the notion that Charlie might be playing an active role in Alex's recovery seemed almost too fantastic to believe. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Laura asked gently, reaching out to hold his hand. "Are you saying Charlie's helping you?" "How?" Alex took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "It's hard to explain," he admitted, glancing down at Charlie, who was sitting by his side, his tail thumping softly against the floor. "But every time he's with me, I feel stronger. And last night, I heard him. In my mind. It was like he was talking to me, telling me that I'm not alone." A stunned silence fell over the room. Jack's brow furrowed as he tried to process what his son was saying. He wanted to be supportive, but he was struggling to understand. "Alex," he began carefully, "are you sure it wasn't just a dream? Sometimes when we really want something, our minds can." "It wasn't a dream, Dad," Alex interrupted, his voice steady and unwavering. "I know what I felt. I know what I heard. Charlie's helping me in a way I don't think any of us understand." Laura looked down at Charlie, her eyes softening as she studied the dog. She had seen the way he stayed close to Alex, never leaving his side, his loyalty unwavering. And while she didn't know how it was possible, she couldn't shake the feeling that her son was telling the truth. She squeezed Alex's hand, a gentle smile playing at her lips. "All right, honey," she said softly. "If you believe Charlie is helping you, then I believe it too. We're here with you, every step of the way." Buoyed by his parents' support, Alex felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude. He reached down and scratched Charlie behind the ears, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. They were in this together, and somehow, he knew that was all that mattered. Over the next several weeks, Alex's progress continued at a pace that defied all explanation. Each day, he felt stronger, more capable. His physical therapist, Dr. Madison, was astonished by the changes, her professional demeanor often giving way to open amazement as she watched him complete exercises that had once been impossible. One afternoon, during a particularly challenging session, Alex was attempting to balance himself as he shifted from his wheelchair to a set of parallel bars. Charlie lay nearby, watching him with a look of intense focus, his gaze never wavering as Alex struggled to lift himself up. Just as Alex felt his strength waning, he glanced over at Charlie, who tilted his head as if urging him onward. "You can do it," the familiar whisper echoed in his mind, filling him with a surge of determination. With a final push, Alex straightened, his arms shaking with effort but holding firm. Dr. Madison clapped her hands, her face lit up with pride. "That's incredible, Alex. I've never seen such rapid progress in someone with your condition. You're surpassing every expectation." Alex beamed, feeling a surge of pride swell in his chest. He knew that without Charlie's support, both physical and emotional, he would never have come this far. But as the weeks continued, he began to wonder if there was something even greater at work, something beyond his understanding. It wasn't long before word of Alex's remarkable progress began to spread. His doctors were mystified, and his case caught the attention of medical professionals across the country. He was soon invited to meet with a leading neurologist, Dr. Evelyn Hart, who specialized in spinal cord injuries and innovative treatments. Dr. Hart was known for her open-minded approach to medicine, often exploring unconventional methods in her quest to push the boundaries of what was possible. Dr. Hart arrived at the Wilsons' home one chilly afternoon, her demeanor calm but inquisitive as she observed Alex and Charlie interacting. She listened attentively as Alex described his experiences, taking careful notes and asking thoughtful questions. "So, you're saying that you feel a sense of strength whenever Charlie is near?" Dr. Hart asked, her gaze thoughtful as she glanced down at the dog, who was watching her with an intensity that seemed almost unnatural. Alex nodded. "Yes, it's hard to explain, but it's like he's guiding me, somehow. I feel this warmth whenever he's close, like he's giving me energy. And sometimes I hear him, like a whisper in my mind, telling me to keep going." Dr. Hart leaned back, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied Charlie. "Alex, I've seen many cases of remarkable recovery, but yours is unique. There are stories, though unproven, of people who experience accelerated healing through emotional support animals. But in your case," she hesitated, as though choosing her words carefully, "it almost seems as though Charlie is doing more than just providing emotional support." Jack, who had been listening intently, finally spoke up, his voice laced with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "Are you saying that Charlie might be, what, transmitting some kind of energy to Alex?" Dr. Hart smiled faintly, a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. "It's possible that there's a physiological reaction happening when Alex and Charlie are together. We know that close contact with animals can release oxytocin, which can aid in healing. But this goes beyond that. There's something here we don't fully understand yet, a bond that seems to be influencing Alex's nervous system in a way we can't explain." Over the next few weeks, Dr. Hart worked closely with Alex, observing his progress and conducting a series of tests. She measured his brain activity, his heart rate, and even took samples of his skin cells, hoping to find clues to explain the mysterious healing phenomenon. But each test left her more perplexed than the last. And then, one evening, Dr. Hart witnessed something that would forever alter her understanding of the bond between Alex and Charlie. Alex was in his room, working on his physical therapy exercises with Charlie at his side, when Dr. Hart noticed a faint, golden glow emanating from the boy's legs. It was so subtle that she almost thought she was imagining it. But as she looked closer, the glow intensified, spreading from Alex's legs up to his chest. Alex's expression was calm, his eyes closed as he concentrated, seemingly unaware of the strange light surrounding him. Dr. Hart's heart raced as she glanced down at Charlie, who was watching Alex with a quiet, almost serene expression. And then, to her astonishment, she heard a soft voice, a voice that seemed to come not from the room, but from within her own mind. "He is healing. He has the strength within him. I am here to help him find it." The voice was unmistakably Charlie's, a deep, resonant tone filled with wisdom and kindness. Dr. Hart's breath caught in her throat as she tried to process what she had just experienced. She knew it was impossible, defying every scientific principle she had ever known, yet the voice was as clear and real as her own thoughts. When Alex opened his eyes, the glow faded, leaving him feeling refreshed and more invigorated than ever. Dr. Hart could barely contain her excitement as she shared what she had observed with the Wilsons. "There's something extraordinary happening here," she told them, her voice trembling with awe. "I've never seen anything like it. It's as though Charlie is channeling some form of healing energy, an energy that's unlocking Alex's ability to heal." Laura clutched her husband's hand, her eyes filling with tears. "So you're saying that Charlie really is helping Alex, that it's not just in our minds?" Dr. Hart nodded, her face alight with wonder. "I don't know how or why, but yes, I believe Charlie is playing a direct role in Alex's recovery. It's a phenomenon I've never encountered before, and one that challenges everything we know about medicine and healing. But the evidence is undeniable." In the days that followed, Dr. Hart arranged for Alex and Charlie to visit her research center, where she planned to conduct a more extensive study on their bond. News of the miraculous case spread, capturing the attention of scientists, doctors, and journalists alike. The Wilsons found themselves at the center of a media storm, their once quiet lives transformed as people clamored to witness the miracle boy and his dog. But through it all, Alex and Charlie remained unfazed, their focus solely on each other. They spent hours together, sharing quiet moments and whispered thoughts, their bond deepening with each passing day. And as Alex's strength continued to grow, he knew that he was on the brink of something incredible, something that would change not only his life, but the lives of countless others. In the stillness of their home, the Wilson family prepared for the next stage of their journey, knowing that they were on the verge of uncovering a mystery that would challenge everything they thought they knew about healing, love, and the power of the human-animal bond. And in the heart of it all, Alex knew one thing for certain. Charlie was more than just a dog. He was a guardian, a healer, and a friend. And together, they were unstoppable. The power of connection. The Wilson household had become a hub of curiosity and fascination as news spread about Alex's extraordinary recovery. Doctors, scientists, and reporters reached out, eager to understand how a young boy, paralyzed from the waist down, was beginning to walk again. Despite the attention, the family tried to keep their lives as normal as possible, focusing on Alex's progress and the inexplicable role that Charlie, his loyal three-legged dog, seemed to play. Dr. Evelyn Hart's research center was buzzing with excitement. The team, handpicked from diverse fields ranging from neurology to animal behavior, was tasked with documenting the bond between Alex and Charlie. Their goal was to uncover the science behind the connection that had defied conventional medical understanding. As Alex and Charlie arrived at the center for their first round of assessments, Dr. Hart welcomed them warmly, her excitement tempered with a professional calm. The center itself was an impressive facility, large, modern, and designed with a tranquil atmosphere meant to put patients and animals at ease. Spacious rooms were outfitted with comfortable furniture, calming colors, and windows that looked out onto expansive gardens. Dr. Hart led the Wilsons into a private room where a series of non-invasive tests had been set up. "We'll start with some simple observations," Dr. Hart explained, guiding Alex into a comfortable reclining chair. "Our goal is to measure your physical responses when you interact with Charlie. We'll monitor your brain waves, heart rate, and nervous system activity to see if we can identify any unusual patterns." Alex nodded, settling back in the chair while Charlie trotted over and lay down by his side. A team of technicians attached small sensors to Alex's scalp, arms, and legs, while another technician gently placed similar sensors on Charlie, who remained calm throughout, his gaze fixed on Alex. The first test was simple. Dr. Hart asked Alex to sit quietly and focus on his breathing, with Charlie lying beside him. The goal was to measure his baseline responses without any deliberate interaction. For several minutes, Alex and Charlie remained still, their breaths falling into a quiet rhythm. The screens displayed their readings, showing steady, calm patterns that indicated a state of relaxation. Then, Dr. Hart asked Alex to reach out and pet Charlie, allowing the dog's presence to fill his senses. As Alex placed his hand on Charlie's head, something remarkable happened. The monitors showed a sudden spike in Alex's brain activity, specifically in regions associated with physical sensation and emotional processing. His heart rate slowed to an unusually calm rhythm, almost as if Charlie's presence were triggering a meditative state. Dr. Hart's team murmured in amazement as they observed the data. The changes were subtle but undeniable. What fascinated them even more was that Charlie's readings mirrored Alex's. As Alex's nervous system calmed, Charlie's also showed signs of relaxation, suggesting a synchronized response. It was as though their bodies were speaking a language of their own, a silent exchange that bypassed words entirely. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Hart whispered, her eyes glued to the monitors. "It's as if your nervous systems are aligning, as if you're in sync on a biological level." The next test was designed to gauge whether Charlie's influence extended to Alex's motor functions. Dr. Hart asked Alex to attempt a small movement with his legs while keeping his hand on Charlie. Alex focused intently, feeling the warmth of Charlie's fur beneath his palm. And once again, a strange energy seemed to flow between them. He felt a surge of strength, a subtle yet powerful sensation that emboldened him. With a deep breath, he concentrated on moving his right foot. At first, there was nothing. But then, slowly, his foot began to shift, inching forward ever so slightly. It wasn't a large movement, but it was more than enough to astound everyone in the room. Dr. Hart's team erupted in hushed gasps, their eyes wide with disbelief. Dr. Hart stepped forward, her expression filled with a mixture of wonder and curiosity. "Alex, that was incredible. Whatever connection you have with Charlie, it seems to be enhancing your motor functions." Alex beamed, glancing down at Charlie, who looked up at him with calm, wise eyes, as though he had known all along that this moment would come. Alex felt a profound gratitude swell within him, a feeling that went beyond words. Charlie wasn't just helping him physically, he was helping him reconnect with parts of himself he had believed were lost forever. After the tests, Dr. Hart led Alex and his parents into her office, where they reviewed the data together. "Alex," she began, her voice filled with excitement, "we're seeing something here that has never been documented before. Your connection with Charlie is activating parts of your nervous system in ways that we don't fully understand. But one thing is clear, there's a healing component to it." Jack and Laura listened intently, their faces filled with both awe and hope. "What does this mean for Alex?" Jack asked, his voice trembling slightly. Dr. Hart leaned forward, her gaze steady. "It means that there's potential here for a new type of therapy, one that uses the bond between humans and animals as a catalyst for healing. If we can understand how this bond affects Alex's body, we could develop treatments that incorporate the presence of therapy animals for patients with severe injuries." Alex's mind whirled with the possibilities. He had always loved animals, but he never imagined that his relationship with Charlie could impact his recovery in such a profound way. And yet, deep down, he wasn't entirely surprised. He knew that Charlie was special, that his friend's loyalty and love went beyond the ordinary. Charlie wasn't just a dog. He was a healer, a guide, someone who had come into his life with a purpose. In the following weeks, Alex and Charlie returned to the center regularly, becoming the subject of studies that continued to reveal astonishing results. Dr. Hart's research began to attract attention from scientists and medical professionals around the world, and soon, the media caught wind of the story. The Wilsons found themselves at the center of a media frenzy, with news outlets clamoring to interview them and capture footage of Alex and his incredible companion. Despite the attention, Alex remained grounded. For him, the journey was deeply personal, a path of healing and discovery that he shared with Charlie alone. Yet he understood that what they were experiencing could potentially help others, and he felt a growing sense of purpose, a desire to inspire those who felt trapped by their circumstances, just as he once had. One sunny afternoon, as Alex and Charlie strolled through the center's gardens, Alex felt a strange pull to sit by the pond that lay at the heart of the grounds. He wheeled himself over to a quiet spot beneath a tree, with Charlie following closely behind. The dog settled beside him, his gaze soft and tranquil as he watched the gentle ripples on the water's surface. As they sat in comfortable silence, Alex closed his eyes, allowing the warmth of the sun to wash over him. And then, as had happened so many times before, he heard Charlie's voice in his mind, a quiet whisper that carried both strength and tenderness. "You are stronger than you know, Alex. You're meant to share this gift with others." Alex's eyes opened, a sense of wonder spreading through him. It was the first time Charlie had spoken to him so clearly, and though the words were simple, they carried a profound meaning. He understood now that his journey was bigger than himself, that his bond with Charlie had the potential to change lives far beyond his own. The following week, Dr. Hart arranged for Alex to give a demonstration at a medical conference, where doctors, scientists, and researchers had gathered to witness the remarkable progress firsthand. Standing on stage in front of hundreds of onlookers, Alex took a deep breath, feeling the familiar warmth of Charlie's presence by his side. He began by sharing his story, speaking candidly about his struggles and the despair he had felt after his accident. "When I lost the ability to walk, I felt like I had lost a part of myself," he admitted, his voice steady but emotional. "But then, Charlie came into my life, and everything changed. He gave me hope, strength, and a reason to believe that I could be whole again." The audience listened in rapt silence, their eyes riveted on the boy and his dog. As Alex continued, he demonstrated a simple movement with his legs, a feat that would have been impossible just months ago. Gasps of amazement rippled through the crowd as they witnessed the tangible proof of his recovery. Then, in a moment of instinct, Alex reached down and placed a hand on Charlie's head, closing his eyes and concentrating on their connection. He felt the now familiar warmth flow through him, a gentle surge of energy that seemed to awaken every cell in his body. And then, to his astonishment, he heard Charlie's voice, not in his mind, but aloud, a soft, rough sound that filled the room. "Alex, friend, strong." The crowd erupted in shock and awe as they realized what they had just witnessed. Alex's eyes flew open, his heart racing as he stared down at Charlie, who gazed up at him with calm, wise eyes. For a moment, he was speechless, unable to fully comprehend what had just happened. But as he looked into his friend's eyes, he understood that they had crossed a boundary, one that bridged the gap between human and animal in a way no one could explain. The media coverage that followed was intense, with headlines proclaiming the miracle of the boy and his dog. News outlets around the world shared the story, capturing the hearts and imaginations of millions. People from all walks of life reached out, inspired by Alex's journey and the message of hope he carried. Letters flooded in from those who had suffered their own losses, people who had felt isolated and broken, but now saw a glimmer of hope in Alex's story. For the Wilson family, life would never be the same. Alex had become a symbol of resilience and the transformative power of connection, while Charlie's unique abilities challenged the scientific understanding of the human-animal bond. But for Alex and Charlie, the journey was far from over. They had become pioneers on a path of healing and discovery, driven by a purpose that went beyond themselves. Together, they embarked on a new mission, one that would bring them to hospitals, therapy centers, and schools across the nation. Their goal was simple yet profound: to share the message that love, empathy, and connection held the power to heal even the deepest wounds. And as they looked toward the future, Alex knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he and Charlie would face them side by side. Because theirs was a bond that transcended words, a partnership built on trust, love, and the unbreakable strength that only true friendship could bring. A journey of hope and healing. As Alex and Charlie's stories spread across the world, they became symbols of hope and resilience. Their bond, once a private miracle, was now a public phenomenon, sparking curiosity and inspiration in millions. Hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and therapy programs reached out to invite Alex and Charlie to share their story. With patients facing severe injuries, illnesses, or disabilities, The Wilson family found themselves on a journey they had never expected, one that would take them far beyond the walls of their home and into the hearts of countless people. Their first stop was a children's hospital in New York, where Alex had been invited to meet with young patients who had been similarly impacted by life-altering injuries. The hospital had arranged for a quiet, intimate setting in a large activity room filled with plush chairs, colorful murals, and a handful of children who waited eagerly, their faces filled with a mixture of excitement and hope. As Alex wheeled himself into the room, with Charlie trotting faithfully by his side, a hush fell over the gathering. Alex could feel the anticipation in the room, the weight of the unspoken questions in each child's gaze. Some were in wheelchairs, like Alex, while others lay quietly on gurneys, their eyes wide as they watched him enter. He felt a pang of empathy for each of them, understanding all too well the fear and sadness that came with being told their bodies might never heal. Taking a deep breath, Alex began to share his story, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. He spoke about the accident that had changed his life, the months he spent feeling hopeless, and the day he met Charlie, a dog with a past as broken as his own, who became his strength, his guide, and his friend. "I know what it's like to feel lost," he said, his gaze sweeping across the room, meeting each child's eyes in turn. "I know what it's like to wonder if things will ever get better, but I'm here to tell you that no matter what you're going through, there's always hope. Sometimes that hope comes from the people around us, or even from a friend like Charlie." As he spoke, Charlie moved among the children, gently nuzzling their hands and resting his head on their laps. His calm presence filled the room with a warmth that seemed to soothe even the most anxious of hearts. Alex watched as the children reached out to pet him, their faces softening, their eyes brightening. It was a sight that filled him with a deep sense of purpose, a realization that he was part of something much larger than himself. After his talk, one of the children, a young girl named Emma who had lost her leg to cancer, approached Alex with a hesitant smile. She glanced down at Charlie, her eyes wide with admiration, and then looked up at Alex. Do you think I could get better too, like you?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with both hope and uncertainty. Alex nodded, his smile gentle but filled with conviction. "I believe that anything is possible, Emma. It might not happen in the way you expect, but I think we all have the strength inside us to keep going, no matter what." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled, reaching down to pat Charlie's head. Alex watched as Charlie leaned into her touch, his gaze filled with the same empathy he had shown Alex so many times before. In that moment, Alex understood that Charlie's gift wasn't just about physical healing. His presence brought comfort, encouragement, and a sense of connection that words alone couldn't provide. The hospital visit marked the beginning of a new chapter for Alex and Charlie. Over the following months, they traveled across the country, visiting hospitals, therapy centers, and schools. They met children and adults alike, each facing their own battles, each searching for a glimmer of hope to hold on to. At every stop, Charlie's calming presence left a lasting impact, his gentle spirit bringing comfort to those who needed it most. One day, they received an invitation from a rehabilitation center in San Francisco that specialized in treating spinal cord injuries. The center's director, Dr. Miriam Ortega, was an advocate for animal-assisted therapy and had heard about Alex and Charlie's incredible story. She believed that their bond could offer invaluable insights for her patients, many of whom were struggling with the emotional toll of their injuries. As Alex and Charlie arrived at the center, Dr. Ortega greeted them warmly, her expression filled with admiration. "Thank you for coming, Alex," she said, shaking his hand. "Your story has given hope to so many of our patients. I'm thrilled that you're here." Alex smiled, glancing down at Charlie, who wagged his tail in response. "We're glad to be here," he replied, his voice sincere. "If our journey can help even one person feel stronger, then it's worth it." Dr. Ortega led them through the center, introducing them to several patients along the way. They met an elderly man who had lost mobility after a stroke, a young woman who had been paralyzed in a car accident, and a teenage boy who was struggling to regain use of his arms after a sports injury. Each person they met looked at Charlie with the same mixture of curiosity and hope, their faces lighting up as they interacted with the remarkable dog who had changed Alex's life. As they moved from room to room, Alex began to notice a pattern. Each time Charlie approached a patient, the monitors tracking their heart rate, blood pressure, and brain activity displayed subtle but significant changes. Patients' heart rates slowed, their stress levels dropped, and their nervous system responses became more stable. Dr. Ortega's team documented these changes, marveling at the data that seemed to confirm what Alex had long felt, that Charlie's presence held a unique power to calm and heal. During one session, Alex was introduced to Sarah, a young woman who had been paralyzed from the neck down after a motorcycle accident. Her prognosis was bleak, and she had been told that her chances of recovery were slim. Sarah's eyes were distant, her expression one of quiet despair as she watched Alex and Charlie enter the room. Dr. Ortega introduced them, and Alex could see the pain in Sarah's gaze, the loneliness that mirrored his own feelings from those early, dark days after his accident. He rolled his wheelchair over to her bedside, Charlie following closely behind. "Hi, Sarah," Alex said softly, his voice filled with empathy. "I know what it's like to feel like there's no way forward. I've been there too." Sarah's eyes flickered with interest, though her expression remained guarded. "You don't understand," she murmured, her voice tinged with bitterness. "I'll never walk again. I'm stuck here, trapped." Alex nodded, his heart aching for her. He understood her pain better than anyone, but he also knew that healing wasn't just about physical recovery. It was about finding hope, even in the darkest of times. "I thought I'd never walk again either," he admitted, glancing down at Charlie. "But then Charlie came into my life, and he showed me that sometimes healing doesn't happen in the way we expect. It's not just about walking again. It's about finding a reason to keep going, even when it feels impossible." Charlie approached Sarah's bedside, his gaze gentle as he looked up at her. She hesitated, but after a moment, she reached out, letting her hand rest on his head. A soft, almost imperceptible sigh escaped her lips, and Alex saw the faintest hint of a smile tug at the corners of her mouth. In the days that followed, Alex and Charlie continued their visits, spending time with Sarah and the other patients. Slowly, Sarah began to open up, sharing her fears and frustrations, her dreams and hopes. She told Alex about her love of painting, how she used to lose herself in the vibrant colors and fluid strokes, and how her accident had taken that part of her away. Alex listened, offering words of encouragement, but it was Charlie who seemed to work the real magic. Each time he was near, Sarah's spirits lifted, her gaze softened, and her voice grew steadier. Dr. Ortega watched in amazement as Sarah's emotional state improved, her attitude shifting from despair to cautious optimism. One evening, as they were preparing to leave the center, Dr. Ortega approached Alex with a thoughtful expression. "I think you and Charlie are doing something remarkable here," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "We've known for years that animal-assisted therapy can have a positive impact, but this is something different. You're not just helping these patients physically. You're giving them hope, a reason to keep fighting." Alex smiled, feeling the deep sense of fulfillment. "Charlie's the one with the magic," he replied, glancing down at his friend. "He has a way of making people feel understood, like he sees something in them that they can't see in themselves." Over the next several months, Alex and Charlie continued their journey, becoming a symbol of hope for people everywhere. They traveled to rehabilitation centers, hospitals, and community events, sharing their story and offering comfort to those who needed it most. Through their journey, Alex learned that healing was a process, one that required not only physical strength but emotional resilience and the support of those who cared. One night, after a long day of visiting patients, Alex sat alone with Charlie in their hotel room, reflecting on everything they had experienced. He reached down, scratching behind Charlie's ears as he whispered softly, "Thank you, Charlie. I don't think I'd be here if it weren't for you." To his surprise, Charlie lifted his head, meeting Alex's gaze with a steady, wise expression. And then, in a voice that was as soft as a breeze, he replied, "You have always been strong, Alex. You just needed someone to help you see it." Tears pricked Alex's eyes as he realized the truth in Charlie's words. He had spent so long doubting himself, believing that his injury had taken away his strength. But through Charlie's unwavering loyalty, he had found a strength he hadn't known existed, a resilience that went beyond his physical limitations. Their journey was far from over, but as Alex held Charlie close, he knew that no matter where life took them, they would face it together. Because theirs was a bond forged in adversity, a friendship that had transformed them both, and a love that had the power to heal. A legacy of love and transformation. Years passed, and Alex and Charlie's journey continued to inspire people around the world. Their remarkable story, once confined to the walls of a humble Ohio home, had become a beacon of hope, a symbol of the extraordinary healing power found in the bonds we share with animals. Together, they had challenged conventional beliefs, brought comfort to the weary, and redefined what it meant to heal. As Alex grew into a young adult, his experiences with Charlie shaped every part of his life. Driven by his journey, he pursued a degree in psychology with a focus on animal-assisted therapy, determined to deepen his understanding of the connection he and Charlie had shared. His goal was clear: to help others discover the same strength and resilience that Charlie had awakened in him. After completing his studies, Alex opened the Hope's Heart Institute, a center dedicated to integrating animal-assisted therapy into traditional and alternative medicine. The institute quickly became known for its holistic approach, combining cutting-edge research with a deep commitment to empathy and connection. Located in a serene wooded area on the outskirts of Cleveland, the institute was designed to be a sanctuary for both humans and animals, a place where people could find healing and animals could find purpose. Charlie, now older and slower, had become a beloved figure at the institute, his story known by every staff member and visitor who walked through its doors. His muzzle had turned gray, and his steps were gentler, but his eyes still held the same warmth and wisdom that had comforted Alex on his darkest days. Charlie was no longer just a therapy dog. He was an icon, a living testament to the transformative power of love. One autumn morning, Alex was sitting on the institute's front porch, watching the golden leaves drift down from the trees. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy scent of fall, and the landscape around him glowed in shades of amber and crimson. Charlie lay beside him, resting his head on Alex's lap, his breaths slow and steady. As they sat together in peaceful silence, Alex couldn't help but feel a bittersweet ache in his heart. He knew that Charlie's time with him was drawing to a close, and though he had prepared himself for it as best as he could, the thought of saying goodbye was almost too much to bear. "Hey, buddy," Alex murmured, stroking Charlie's soft fur. "Do you remember how it all started? You saved me, you know. I don't think I'd be here without you." Charlie looked up at him, his eyes filled with the same quiet understanding that had been there from the beginning. And as Alex gazed into those familiar brown eyes, he felt a rush of memories. The day they met, the countless therapy sessions, the hospital visits, the long nights filled with whispered conversations and shared hope. He had spent so many years giving to others, carrying forward the lessons that Charlie had taught him. But now, as he sat beside his oldest friend, he realized that the greatest gift of all had been Charlie's love. "You have done well, Alex," came the gentle whisper, filling his mind with a warmth that brought tears to his eyes. "I was meant to guide you, and now you will guide others." Alex closed his eyes, letting the weight of those words sink in. He had known this day would come, yet the reality of it was overwhelming. But as he held Charlie close, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace, a feeling that Charlie's legacy would live on, woven into the fabric of every life they had touched. In the days that followed, Charlie's health began to decline. He spent most of his time resting in the Institute's garden, surrounded by the patients, staff, and visitors who had come to love him. People would visit him each day, sitting quietly by his side, sharing their stories, their worries, their hopes. Charlie listened to each one with the same patience and empathy he had always shown, his presence a source of comfort to all. Then one cool evening, as the first hints of winter lingered in the air, Charlie passed peacefully in his sleep. Alex was by his side, holding his paw as he whispered words of love and gratitude, his heart breaking even as he knew that Charlie's spirit would never truly leave him. The news of Charlie's passing spread quickly, and the Institute became a place of remembrance and reflection. Messages poured in from around the world. Letters, emails, videos, each one sharing stories of how Alex and Charlie's journey had touched their lives. People spoke of the hope they had found, the courage to face their own battles, and the strength to believe in possibilities they once thought impossible. In honor of Charlie, Alex created the Charlie's Legacy program at the Institute, a unique initiative focused on training therapy dogs to work with patients experiencing physical and emotional challenges. The program's philosophy was simple yet powerful. Each dog was paired with a person in need, not just as a pet, but as a partner on the journey to healing. Under Alex's guidance, the program grew rapidly, attracting the attention of medical institutions and universities alike. Soon, hospitals across the country began to adopt similar programs, inspired by the work that had begun at Hope's Heart Institute. Alex traveled to speak at conferences, sharing his story and the principles behind animal-assisted therapy with doctors, psychologists, and researchers. One evening after a long day at the Institute, Alex returned to his quiet office, surrounded by pictures and mementos of his time with Charlie. The walls were lined with photographs of patients and their therapy dogs, each one a testament to the healing power of companionship and empathy. He sat at his desk, his mind drifting as he reflected on everything that had brought him to this point. As he reached into his desk drawer to retrieve a notebook, his hand brushed against something familiar. He pulled it out, his breath catching as he realized what it was, a small, scruffy toy that Charlie had loved to play with in his younger days. It was worn and faded, a remnant of a time long past, but holding it brought a wave of memories that filled Alex's heart with both joy and sorrow. He closed his eyes, clutching the toy in his hands, and in that quiet moment, he felt Charlie's presence beside him. It was faint, like the brush of a breeze, but unmistakable. A soft, warm glow spread through him, filling him with a peace he hadn't felt since Charlie's passing. "Thank you, Charlie," he whispered, a single tear slipping down his cheek, "for everything." From that day forward, Alex poured his heart and soul into the Institute, determined to carry on Charlie's legacy in every way he could. He expanded the programs, reaching out to veterans, trauma survivors, and children in foster care, offering them the chance to connect with therapy dogs trained through the Charlie's Legacy program. Each new partnership brought its own stories of transformation, stories of people who, like Alex, found healing through the power of love. As the years went by, the Hope's Heart Institute became a beacon of compassion and innovation, a place where the impossible became possible and where people discovered the strength within themselves to overcome any obstacle. Alex's work touched thousands, yet he always remained humble, attributing every success to the lessons he had learned from his three-legged friend. One day, a young boy named Lucas arrived at the Institute, his face filled with the same quiet despair Alex had once known. Lucas had lost the use of his legs in an accident, and though he put on a brave front, Alex could see the pain in his eyes, the longing for something he had once thought he could never have again. Alex introduced Lucas to a gentle, loving dog named Rocky, who had been trained through the Charlie's Legacy program. As he watched Lucas reach out to Rocky, Alex felt a sense of déjà vu, a bittersweet reminder of his own journey. He saw the same spark of connection, the same unspoken bond that had changed his life so many years ago. In that moment, Alex knew that Charlie's legacy had come full circle. He had created something that would live on long after he was gone, a ripple of love and healing that would continue to touch lives for generations to come. Years later, as Alex reflected on his life's work, he realized that his journey had never truly been about recovery. It had been about rediscovering hope, embracing the power of connection, and honoring the love that had guided him through his darkest days. And as he gazed at the photograph of Charlie that hung on his office wall, he smiled, feeling his friend's presence as clearly as he had on that first day they met. Because some bonds, he knew, transcended time and space. They were woven into the very fabric of who we are, leaving traces that could never be erased. And in the end, it was Charlie's love that had shown him the way. End of part 6. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey with you. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to explore in Alex and Charlie's story.